As people are settling in, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, what organization you're coming from, and I assume hopefully you're working with youth, or maybe your interest in attending today's event today. So introduce yourselves in the chat as you're getting settled in. Awesome. Fabulous. All right, I think we're gonna get started. I don't want to um, delay too much because we have a really exciting program for everyone here today. Hello, bonjour à tous, and thanks for joining us on our peer learning group. If you guys had joined the webinar on Tuesday, um, that had just happened, really glad and excited that you're here today to continue the conversation. My name is Connie Tang from Research Impact Canada. I'm joined by my colleague Sandy, by our partners at the Future Skills Center, our guest speaker André McDonald from the University of Alberta's Elite Program for Black Youth. Si tu veux participer en français ou tu veux attendre en français, nous avons aussi l'interprétation simultanée et tu peux l'accéder dans la barre de Zoom avec la icône globe et tu peux choisir la chaîne française pour écouter cette présentation en français. Happy Halloween and happy Diwali to anyone who celebrates. And yeah, thanks for joining us on this like Thursday morning, afternoon, wherever you might be coming to us from. If this is your first time joining us for this thing called a peer learning group, like what is this thing? I'll provide a quick overview of the session, fear not. And if you've attended peer learning groups in the past, we're so excited and happy that you're back here again. We really wanted to work with FSC to complement some of the webinars because the webinars are an opportunity to hear from these amazing programs and guest speakers. But also we wanted to hear from you and we want to learn from you guys and have this like really great space for exchange and learning, which is why we're doing this peer learning group. And so the goal of these peer learning groups is really to facilitate conversations. We want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. We want to hear about your experiences, your examples, and also have you guys share with each other and connect with one another as well. As we dive into it, in your breakout room, well, there's going to be breakout rooms. So in your breakout rooms or in some of our main sessions when we all, come back together, feel free to connect, and especially in the intros as people are putting it in the chat. Thank you very much for the folks who are introducing yourselves in the chat. We've also had folks in the past share their LinkedIn, share their email, share their contact, to kind of build on some of the relationships and connections that are just starting today. And so really, really welcome for you to do that too. We'll talk a little bit about the agenda shortly, and we will have, an opportunity to give you an overview and a bit of an outline and some of these questions for breakout rooms. But like I said, the goal of these peer learning groups is really to facilitate conversations with all of you. So Sandy, if you could just go to the next slide. I wanted to bring your attention to some housekeeping. So bear with me here, folks. We're going to go through this quickly, but I think this stuff is really important. So closed captioning is available for this session. And in your Zoom toolbar, that's usually at the bottom half of your screen, you can find it and click the CC button and choose closed captioning. We also have interpretation available for today. And so if you'd like to listen or participate in French, you can choose the channel to listen in English or French by clicking on the globe icon. Je vais parler un peu en français et en anglais. Notre guest speaker, André, va aussi parler un peu en les deux langues. And so we'll flip a little bit back and forth. And so you can choose the channel that might be most appropriate to you, or the original audio will kind of be a little bit of a mix of both. Um, After the presentation, we will be going into a facilitated discussion in breakout rooms where, like I said, we'll invite you to share your insights and experiences. The breakout rooms itself will not be recorded, but this session, this piece here, some of the primer presentations, anything that we come together as a main group will be recorded. And just in case folks ask, yes, we will share slides and the recording after the event. What we tend to do actually about 2 weeks after the event, so in about mid-November, you can expect a link with the slides that we've shared today, the recording, as well as any resources and kind of some things that we've heard from folks in the breakout room or that have been shared in the chat. And so if you see something or hear something really interesting, you're like, oh, I missed it. Fear not. In 2 weeks, you'll get it in your inbox. Okay. Next slide, please, Sandy. Before we continue, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from Takaranto, which is on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. As we are gathered virtually, I encourage you to reflect and acknowledge the land that you're joining us from. We're so lucky to be able to live, work, celebrate, and play in the spaces that we're in. And yeah, it's such a I think important thing to acknowledge. So for today, we will discuss how to close some of the disparities or some of the gaps that we see among youth. And we can do this in a variety of ways. We can equip youth with practical skills. We can expose them to cool careers and networks. And we can also really talk about like tools and resources and all that stuff. So I don't know where folks are coming from. I know we've had a lot of really diverse folks with what I'm seeing in the chat here. And so really excited to encourage you to talk about your experiences and connect with others, share your LinkedIn, share your contact if you feel comfortable doing so. So here's a quick overview of the next 90 minutes or so. In a moment, I'll be turning it over to Professor André McDonald from the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Alberta and the Program Director of the Elite Program for Black Youth. You may have heard from him if you attended the webinar on Tuesday. We will then be going into breakout rooms for about 30 minutes. And in those breakout rooms, we'll have facilitators, we'll have a question to ask you guys, we'll have note takers, and then we'll come back together, do a bit of a report back. And again, like I said, we'll share some notes and all that stuff about 2 weeks after. So to give you a bit of a preview, here is the question that we will be discussing in our breakout rooms. How have you and your organization worked with employers and or other partners to help empower or help young people and prepare them for the future of work? So just keep this question as a little nugget in your mind. And as we listen to kind of a quick primer presentation from André, as we move to the breakout rooms, hopefully that inspires and some juicy nuggets from all of you guys. Why have I landed on the word nugget? I don't know. Well, let's move on. All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to André. André, please take it away.
Hey, good morning, and thank you so much, Connie. And I also like nuggets too, so that is totally fine. All right, so good morning, everyone. I'm just gonna go ahead and just share my screen right now, and then I'll just double check to make sure that everyone can see that in presentation mode. All right, so Connie, just doing a check, all is well?
Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
wonderful. Thank you so much. And merci encore, Connie, pour la belle introduction à tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much again for joining us here and for listening to me speak for about 15 minutes or so as a primer to the event today. So as Connie mentioned, my name is André McDonald. I'm a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering here at the University of Alberta, and the director of the Experiential Learning in technology, the Experiential Learning in Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship program for Black youth that we fondly call the ELITE program, which is a work integrated training program for Black youth. Juste pour nos collègues qui parlent français, bonjour. Je suis vraiment contente d'être ici avec vous. On va parler aujourd'hui d'un programme Elite. C'est un programme d'apprentissage à la formation au travail, au intérêt au travail pour la jeunesse noire, en particulièrement au Canada, mais spécifiquement à Edmonton présentement. Donc, ça me fait grand plaisir de vous présenter ce programme-là. Puis, on va parler de tout l'élément de notre programme, tout le succès qu'on a déjà, mais plus là, l'impact de ce programme à Edmonton, mais aussi au Canada en particulièrement. Euh, Toutes les diapositives sont en anglais, mais je vais parler de temps en temps en français, en particulièrement quand on parle de programmes qui s'épanchent sur notre stagiaire francophone ou le parti de notre programme qui ont livré qui ont livre en français. So we like to call the ELITE program for Black youth a next generation community engaged work integrated training program in STEM. As I was mentioning to our colleagues in French, all these slides will be in English, but for those who are Anglophones on the call, we'll switch between the two languages as we move forward. But I will try to keep a consistency throughout so everyone gets all the information that we will deliver to get ready for the session today. So before we start to talk about the ELITE program, I would like to maybe discuss very briefly the current state of affairs for Canadian Black youth. This is really us setting the problem or the problematic for for why we need this program called the ELITE program for Black youth. So the issues that we face are that Black youth face lower academic and employment outcomes in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and business fields. We all know that these fields tend to be the fields that produce high-wage job opportunities and professional careers in Canada and internationally. Black youth, however, have limited access to post-secondary education and as a result have limited access to those high-wage employment opportunities. Black youth have a lower perception within themselves of actually attaining the education needed to enter into these high-wage opportunities. Black youth, however, 94% of them would actually like to obtain a university degree or some other kind of trades degree to position them for these higher employment opportunities. But only 60% of them think they will be able to obtain one, suggesting that there is a disparity between what they want and what they perceive. Black youth, as a result, and because of other things that are happening within society, experience unemployment rates that are 3.75 times higher than the general population. And to be specific, we're looking at a current unemployment rate for Black youth between 15 and 24 of 24%. The general population in that age group has an unemployment rate of about 18%, and the general population, all ages, are about 6.5% or so, just to put things into perspective. Black Canadians in the United States, as well as in Canada, are employed in a majority sense in low-wage sectors, specifically food and beauty services and others. So, having a pipeline, though, of people that can be ready to enter into these high-wage employment areas is something that we would want to think about about doing as a society and as educators and community groups. We do know that the Black graduate student pipeline is also underdeveloped, which undermines the ability of our youth to enter into these high wage employment areas to support their socio-economic upward mobility. So what is needed? What is needed are experiential learning and work integrated training opportunities that will actually give youth the skills before they graduate academic institutions and have them ready for the workforce in advance of joining that workforce. Engagement in high-wage professional sectors before they graduate will also give them the opportunity to be well prepared for professions in those areas. We, of course, are citing that skills development in technology ecosystems is needed. Now, of course, as a professor in mechanical engineering, I am leaning towards, technology. But research by McKinsey and Company, Deloitte, Statistics Canada, and others have actually shown that employers will demand by 2030 a 14 to 26% increase in personnel with technology skills, be it digital skills, professional scientific skills, and so forth. Paid internships can be a way to help to remedy some of these problems. And I underline the word paid in internships because we want to support youth of all demographics, but in particularly Black youth with opportunities to make some money. I'll just say it, pretty candidly, while they're still in school, to also help them to accelerate into their socioeconomic upward mobility pathways. That said, though, we do acknowledge, and research has shown that social and emotional skills development is also needed in youth and the worker of tomorrow by 2030. There will be a 13 to 28% increase in demand in those in people with those skill sets on the socio-emotional side. But what are these social and emotional skills? Would they include leadership, entrepreneurship, negotiation, the ability to teach others, being adaptable, especially under stressful situations, having a willingness and an understanding of the approaches around continuous learning, being able to communicate, and also being self-aware, resilient, and being well within the professions that they choose to work. So the ELITE program is the solution that we propose for all of this. So the purpose of the ELITE program is really to create opportunities for Black youth to access experiential learning and work integrated training opportunities. Because of the research that we have found and because of our own expertise and experience at the ELITE program here at the University of Alberta, we focus on science, technology, engineering, mathematics fields, but we also include business, entrepreneurship, and even psychology as well, because those are professions that really connect into STEM disciplines. We've really targeted on disruptor technology areas such as robotics, precision medicine, and I list a few others here, including advanced manufacturing, finance, and economics is another area that we have really targeted as a part of the program. So our goals based on the issues and what is actually needed is to develop and provide an experiential learning and work integrated training platform and opportunities that are coupled and wrapped around with entrepreneurship, design and leadership training, but then also supplemented by mental health and wellness a series and strategies as well that will support a holistic approach to skills development in innovation ecosystems in Canada by providing paid work integrated internships to Black youth and Black people in Canada. So we accomplish this, of course, by looking at this through a work integrated learning and training lens, where we engage with research professors at the university, we engage with industry partners, government partners, to really provide the hands-on project-based experience to interns, and really focus on the skills development component. So academic researchers will be at the University of Alberta or Carleton University, for example, in Ottawa, Ontario. Industry partners will include those such as Enbridge, other SMEs, Stantec, Imperial Oil come to mind right away. Cisco Canada, the one that delivers, and does distribution of food across Canada as well. Government partners will involve those who are keen on policy, but also look at it through a STEM lens. So, for example, the Ottawa Health Research Institute, Alberta Health Services, Innotech Alberta here in Alberta will also provide technology-based training, but also through a lens of policy and government engagement as well. And then we couple that with entrepreneurship and well-being training, where we collaborate with Edmonton Unlimited and the Black Business Ventures Association to provide experiential, direct entrepreneurship and leadership training. And then, of course, we work with registered clinical psychologists here at the University of Alberta in our Faculty of Education around youth, mental health, and well-being. They will then provide the coaching and facilitation of our wellness and coaching series. So to provide a bit more detail on this, the hands-on work integrated training program works with interns between 8 to 16 weeks, 8 weeks if they're in high school, 16 weeks if they're in undergraduate programs, and they all work full-time. The youth demographic will be 15 to 22 years old in high school and undergraduate, and they work full-time for about 4 to 5 days per week on the job on projects. So that will give, about 25 to 32 hours of work per week on site. Then the program Wellness and Coaching Series will work with our colleague, Dr. Sophie Ioane in the Faculty of Education here to provide wellness and coaching training through a modular concept. So we have about 8 modules for undergraduates, 5 modules for high school students, where we work across the state hope scale. We work to build resiliency, and we talk about how to manage and address anti-Black racism in the professions, especially in STEM. And we look to talk about how to develop a sense of self-advocacy, agency in these Black youth, and really get them to talk about that and give them the appropriate tools and resources to support them when they leave the program. The Entrepreneurship Design Series is a hands-on series looking at how to build a startup, how to create it, how to finance it, how to work with a customer base, do pitch presentations, and really develop the idea around forming a company or forming an idea from an innovation or a technology perspective, but through an entrepreneurship lens. This is, of course, led by Edmonton Unlimited, which is a quasi-government funded organization here, looking at setting up STEM type of businesses. And of course, the Black Business Ventures Association, which is a Black-led, Black-run community group here that looks to support Black founders of any age in the prairies, Canada here. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of the elite program impact, these are some of the pictures of the interns who have worked with the program. And as you can see, they're all smiling. Everyone is happy. And I can tell you that they're genuinely happy to be here, with us as a part of this program. And in terms of impact, over the last 4 years alone, since inception of the program in around 2021, we have trained 200 youths so far, creating 200 paid jobs and undermining that high youth unemployment rate that I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation. We have really supported youth hope and resilience that has increased, and the increase is measured by students coming in saying that they don't understand what resilience means. They don't understand what that really entails. And when they leave the program 8 to 16 weeks later, they're saying that they feel hopeful, they feel resilient, they feel prepared and ready for the workforce through a number of different lenses, not only just the work integrated experiential learning lens only. So in terms of our most recent figures and engagements from 2023, we're working on our 2024 report now as we speak. These are just some of the demographics that I wanted to share here, but I won't spend too much time, on this, but I just wanted to show that and emphasize that we try to be diverse across the many intersectional lens that you will see in this heterogeneous Black community in Canada. So we look at it through the lens of citizenship status, making sure that we have international students as well as Canadian students and permanent residents and refugees involved. just to make sure again that we have a pathway to support all students and all interns that we can have access to and who we can engage with. Dans le, excuse-moi là. Dans le domaine de langage, là, on a comme 30% de notre étudiants, notre stagiaires sont francophones. Quand on a commencé le programme en 2020-21, on a commencé avec 9 étudiants qui étaient francophones, mais maintenant, on a fait beaucoup d'engagement avec les étudiants, avec notre campus Saint-Jean. C'est un campus francophone ici à l'Université de l'Alberta. On a travaillé beaucoup avec les partenaires communautaires là, juste pour avoir l'accès aux étudiants dans notre conseil scolaire francophone ici à Edmonton et aussi à Ottawa, en Ontario. Donc, on a augmenté beaucoup le pourcentage d'étudiants qui fait partie de notre programme ici en Alberta dans le programme Elite. In terms of gender as well, we try to also be about a 50-50 split with those who identify as, female, male, boys, girls. And in terms of ethnicity, we're about a 91% Black youth program. We do take non-Black students as well to really help to build our allyship and to build community and simply to train youth in Canada. In terms of some other information, we are a heavily STEM-based focus program. High school and undergraduate is our focus. We are working a bit to build more the high school student engagement. So similarly to what I was saying earlier, we go out into the community groups, we go out to high schools, and we talk to the younger students to really draw them in and attract them into the program. And that is seeming to work well. I can tell you right now, in 2024, we had a 50-50 split, nearly 50-50 split between high school and undergraduate students, which is a huge achievement for us because we need the high school students who tend to be a little bit shyer when engaging with programs like this. But they are the future. They are the pipeline and the sustainability and succession plan for the vision that we have for Canadian youth and through the Elite program. We work heavily with universities, but we also have industry participation as internship hosts, and government also play a part on that. And then the last figure there, I show you roughly, where we are with regards to that. We have also done well with funding. We have a number of sponsors here, and our goal in the Elite program is really to leverage all funding that comes in. And I want to also continuously thank RBC Foundation, the Counseling Foundation of Canada, Future Skills Center, who is also organizing this event as well, and many others who have listed, including the Government of Canada and the Government of Alberta, Carleton University, the University of Alberta, because as a result of their support financially, we have now been able to bring in, with new numbers, nearly $4 million in funding over these 4 years to support the salaries, the wages, the benefits, but also the wraparound services that we provide to the youth, even those that we provide that are of a minor nature, but very important and beyond what we provide through the 2 series that I mentioned earlier. One final note that I'll make on this is that the resources that our sponsors provide are also beyond the funding and the financial. They also engage with us with setting up tours of with employers. They also help us with providing support for the Entrepreneurship Design series as well as the Wellness and Coaching series. We do a lot of dissemination of our ideas and our work through conferences, for example, those that are supported by the Counseling Foundation of Canada, as well as the Future Skills Center. We do a lot of those. I'm here today disseminating information as a result of what Research Impact Canada is doing. So our partners go beyond just supporting us financially, and I definitely want to spend just an extra 30 seconds to really acknowledge that and to, thank them for the support that goes beyond just giving us funding only. So what are the next steps, for impact that we believe not only the Elite program needs to do and that we will try to do, but also what the broader community on the youth training and work experience sector and ecosystem needs to do. So we, of course, at the Elite program will focus on STEM-based training programs, right? Specifically for Black youth. But what I would articulate is that paid work integrated internships are what is needed. We need to start to support the socioeconomic upward mobility of youth from their 15, 16 years old to really build that succession and build that long-term sustainability pipeline. We have a DLE program will make that contribution in the future by focusing on STEM-based training, particularly on Black youth. We need to broaden the engagement with workforce players, and the ELITE program will be focusing on for-profit industry for permanent long-term jobs for youth after they complete their high school or an undergraduate programs to support their entry, successful entry into the workforce. So that is something that we think will be immensely impactful for the Canadian workforce ecosystem, and we want to be able to play a major role in that over, you know, the right now as well as over the near term and the long term. We certainly want to remain connected to post-secondary institutions to support transition from high school to post-secondary. We believe that that's a great pathway. Now, I want to be, to clarify something. When I say post-secondary, I don't only mean the U15 institutions in Canada, but I also mean those that support development of the trades as well, right? Because there is a huge demand in that area, especially on the STEM side. And we at the ELITE program would like to make a contribution to that and are thinking about establishing ourselves there as well, because we will think that that will have broader impact. Questions arise, though, around how to do that effectively. What is missing? What are the barriers in that? Because, working in established post-secondary institutions is a bit more established, and we acknowledge that. We also want to support research as well. Research to answer some of the questions that, we've been asking for the long term. Will this model work more broadly across Canada? What are some of the social barriers that we're facing to broader implementation of this kind of program? Will the cost be an issue going forward in the future? How does government integrate these ideas into long-term policy so that we can have greater discourse across Canada about this, but then at the same time, really be able to support creation of meaningful long-term programs. So we want to also contribute to that by having program evaluation exercises, which again, we're doing with support from Future Skills Centre and the Government of Canada as well, and really developing playbooks that we can share broadly with others who can refine, change, and create some really nice programs as well that we can all learn from and reciprocate in terms of learning. We definitely want to retain the targeted wraparound training in entrepreneurship and wellness management. I will tell you, having Black youth talk about things through an entrepreneurial mindset is powerful. This is how we create the leaders of tomorrow. When I talk about innovation, I don't only mean innovation from a technological sense, but I also mean social innovation as well, because I can tell you these youth are very passionate about using their skills to support their community. They're extremely passionate, and the ELITE program wants to support that and encourage others to do the same as well. We believe that with all of the stressors that come in our professional fields, especially in STEM, wellness management will continue to be very important to us, and it will continue to be very important to the rest of the ecosystem. And we want that to be one of our impact points going forward in the future. We also want to see this model further expanded and grown across Canada. We acknowledge that it is challenging to have a consortium of Black experts in one place like we have here at the University of Alberta and in the Edmonton region that's really working in this professional STEM field to really drive it through an academic institution out into the community and bringing back from the community inward, right? So, we want to maybe bring interns to Edmonton to create a national expansion, because we believe that that will give us immediate impact across Canada in the hopes of actually building this model locally elsewhere in Canada to have even broader impact that will be independent of what we actually created in Edmonton, but will be satisfying the local needs of the people in the local communities elsewhere in Canada. So those are some of the next steps that we're thinking about with regards to impact, but we also want to be able to do the research across all of these 6 areas to really understand how they're working, why they're working, and set the stage for future refinement by others as we collaborate and partner across the board. So with that, I'd like to pause there and stop and open up the floor for any conversation, engagement, and questions, or pivot back to Connie for next steps. Thank you so much for listening. Merci beaucoup à tout le monde. On va retourner à Connie pour continuer avec le programme. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Andre. That was so fascinating. D does anyone have any questions? If you have your video on, you can raise your in real life hand. If you have your video off, then I ask you to raise maybe the virtual Zoom hand or unmute yourselves. Any questions for Andre? As maybe people are kind of thinking up their questions. Andre, I love what you said. I think that like oftentimes these programs, we talk about the like almost the components like the paid internships, which of course is so important, the permanent jobs, the preparedness entering the workforce, the entrepreneurial mindset. But what I love about all those aspects is that we're talking about things that these youth will carry for them for the rest of their life, right? We're not just talking about career entry, we're talking about long-term career resilience, lifelong, which I think is so important. And I love the emphasis on like centering it on hope and resiliency and agency. So crucial. I think probably for everyone, but especially for youth.
Absolutely.
Allison, I noticed that you're unmuted. Did you have a question? Ooh. Nope. Okay. All good. Didn't want to put you on the spot. Andre, I did have one question. I was wondering, you mentioned you want to do some research on these things, on some of those pillars that you had said in your last slide. Do you have any like longitudinal work that maybe you're following these youth 3, 4, 6 years? I mean, I think the programs only happen for 4 years, but maybe that you can, follow up, years after the fact and see what are these youth doing? Are they really entering, maybe STEM-based careers, the places where they had those work integrated learnings? Are they employed at those places? Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Happy to do that, Connie. And I'm so glad you asked that question because, again, a little bit of more credit goes to Future Skills Center and also to the University of Alberta. We did get a small, funding package in, March, April of this year to actually do such a longitudinal study where we actually started to look at working with Malatest and FSC with some University of Alberta researchers, Professor Sophie Owane being one of them, and going back to the start of the program, first cohort in 2021, and actually asking them those exact same questions. Where are you now? Are you in STEM? Are you in graduate school? Are you working? But then we expanded it even more. So we asked questions such as, do you think, now that you're working, do you think that the elite program prepared you for the job that you are doing now? How did it do that? To what extent? So we had some really targeted questions. We also, disaggregated it out based on the work integrated training, the entrepreneurship design, the wellness, to ask them some specific questions. And that's where we found out, just so you know, that year over year, the students would come in, for example, feeling frustrated at the start of the program. When I say frustrated, I mean it from a psychological sense. Uncertain. I don't know what this is about. I know I need a job because I need to have some money, but I have no idea where I'm going, what my path is, and I don't know how to talk to anybody, right? So that's where the psychological frustration comes in. 68% of them said they did not feel psychologically frustrated at the start of the program. At the end of the program, 94% of them, when we asked them the same question again, 94% of them said they did not feel frustrated. So that's just one example of us tracking over the 4 years what folks were saying about the program, right? And I can give you a little bit more really quickly that we did find that about 96% of the youth remained in the STEM disciplines,
Right.
with 100% of them transitioning from high school to post-secondary. Not all of them, went to U of A, McGill,
Yeah.
U of T, Vancouver, UBC, was in the list. Ottawa at Carleton was in the list as well. And about 95 of them transitioned from the university. Those who did graduate transitioned into STEM. A few of them who transitioned into the workforce went to graduate school, medical school, law school, for example, but were in kind of, oh, I want to do IP law type of thing,
Right.
they were still sticking, but they just maybe took a different path, right? So just to give you some background on that.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I see one hand up. I hope I pronounced this name correctly. If I don't, please, I do apologize. Philomena?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, and by the way, I just want to say, as somebody who works with people in the community, parents, Black people, Black communities, parents, pastors, in the Muslim communities, mothers, uh, people, they will tell you, I don't know what to do with my children. I don't know where they are going. I work with new immigrants. And as you know, Africa is Canada's second immigrant sending region and is the primary area now from which Canada draws its Black uh, newcomers. They come and they're telling you, we don't really know where to begin. Some of them, they are very well, many of them are skilled workers. They come in with children. Some of the kids they're already teenagers. They don't know, Canada is new to them and they don't know where to begin. This program is very, very crucial. I have met people who they've been here for a number of years and things have gone wrong by way of, we didn't know. I wish I had known this. I wish I had known this. I didn't have anyone to talk to. Mind you, many of these people, when they come, their first port of call are not the mainstream organizations. It's not the immigrant serving agencies. When they first come, they go to the churches. They go to the imam. They go to informal places to seek help. A program like this is really needed. My question is, Dr. McDonald, if you are given a dream, if you're given the funding, is it how this program can go around Canada? How would you design it? Because we need this program across Canada. The people who have benefited, I mean, they are saying wonderful things. That's how people are actually hearing about it in the community, those who have gone. But there's such little room. So how can we go around? What would be your dream?
Yes. Thank you so much for that question, Professor Okiki and Jarika. Really appreciate it. So, my dream, long term would be to see this program anchored at as many post-secondary academic institutions as possible, or with community groups that then bring the youth in from the community to provide them the training, but doing that with the community as well, but doing it locally, tailored for the local dynamics that are present in those regions, right? So that's something that I would view as, the long-term dream. And I just want to tell you the reason why I say anchored with community groups or with academic institutions, because usually, especially at post-secondary institutions, there is already a system, there's already a platform that we can build from in terms of the administrative support that's there, right? There's also the branding, a youth or a parent or an auntie will say, yeah, I know about University of Toronto. I know about U of A already, right? Or I know about University of Calgary, right? So they will be, the trust will almost be there already. The awareness, the familiarity will be there. And that's a way of actually bringing in the youth as well, because they, themselves will need to feel that they will, this is a place that they will be able to engage with, right? So that's, my dream. The further part of the dream is to see those anchors working together as a team and interconnect network. That
Totally.
extremely important. And we're seeing that happen with our relationship with Carleton University, but also with the community partners, where we're actually working as a team, as friends. We're actually looking together with the same shared vision towards this. So if I had that funding, these are the kind of things. I do acknowledge that we got to start picking the low-hanging fruits right now. So if that means for now, working as a team with our partners to bring the youth here, say to Edmonton, to provide that training, and then sending them back to their local regions to continue, with, supporting their economic upward mobility, but then also spreading the word to get local policymakers in their regions to support the creation of these types of programs, then that will be our initial strategy for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andre, and for that question. I think that is such a great segue into our next component, which is into the breakout rooms. So in the breakout rooms, we want to hear from the folks on this call, hear from you. If you don't mind having your video on while we're in the breakout rooms, that would be fabulous. Really helps with the discussion component. So just right now, my colleague's going to open those breakout rooms. Andre will be in one of the rooms, but Andre is not the only expert here. Everyone who, is joining us here, we have so much to learn from each other. And so really, really want to hear from everyone. And so Sandy, if you could just launch those breakout rooms. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I think that time probably flew by for everyone. Um, and we wanted to do a little bit of a short report back here from each room as to what we talked, what we shared. So with that, I will invite Haley and Ellie, if you'd like to talk a little bit about what you heard in the first breakout room, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks to our group. We had like a short time to say thank you, but yeah, a more fulsome thanks there. And thanks to Ellie for taking notes throughout that session. So some of the themes that we talked around that came up across like a handful of people's different programs. But yeah, a lot of the work that people are doing with youth has this mentorship component, whether that's like coming from peers or adults. And so how do we how are people working to create like a really robust pool of mentors, and especially mentors that represent the youth that are coming into these programs? So that was interesting. So we heard, some different examples of how people are working with like older youth or adults to create that pool of people that those youth can then be supported by. Lots of folks in our room are working with youth in different language populations. So whether it's newcomers to Canada, like minority language communities in Quebec, like the kind of interesting specific Canadian example of like being bilingual, like affiliated either in English or French, even though neither of those might be your first language. And so the specific support that is required both to support youth in that language as well as the specific youth program. Like if we're here to work on skills, like specifically, so how does the language integrate with those programs? And folks also shared a bit about how are we building trust across these programs. So like demonstrating the success of a program, or being able to bring in like previous like graduates or alum of the program as a way of engaging that kind of next generation. So folks are kind of seeing that maybe more expert peer, like familiar youth experience rather than being told by an adult, sort of like what's the piece there. And then, thanks to Mariana, and impact measurement was also a big question. So like, how are we measuring some of the, like, I don't know, more qualitative like perspectives on how the project is working? So feelings around like hope or resilience or confidence, like being grown over that. So we've got some resources that folks have shared in the chat. And then in terms of like, how do we then communicate that impact to people? So Andre shared a bit about what they're doing at Elite. So using platforms like LinkedIn and using very visual ways of communicating the results from programs to engage, whether it's like employers that you're hoping to engage in your program or policymakers who are going to be making decisions about youth employment programs. So hopefully that feels like a solid summary. Welcome, Ellie, or anyone from my group to jump in with anything that feels missed, whether you want to do that on mic or jump in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haley.
Thanks, Connie.
Really cool. I think in our breakout room, we started off hearing about Tom had talked about like a program that was training drone pilots, and you could get youth to then like play drone soccer, and it was like a way to teach like avionics and engineering and all that stuff. But something that really at least resonated with me was this idea of play as like another entry point. I know Andre, in your presentation, you had mentioned like, oh yeah, like sometimes youth come to our program because they're like, hey, I need to get a job because I need money. And I think that there's also something really cool and exciting about, hey, like youth want to participate in this because they want to play, because it's fun for them. And that can be an entry point into skills learning and into leadership and into entrepreneurial mindset and into creative thinking. and of course, hopefully with that, that they get credit in some way. That was another thing that was talked about in our group, which was, can we give them credit? So Andre, you mentioned a lot about paid internships, which is amazing. We also had some folks who, were working in micro credentials and all that stuff. And so how do you give folks credit and recognition for their work and participating in work integrated learning opportunities or maybe play integrated learning opportunities of, like, can you give them school credits? Can they take less courses? Can it mean that even if you can't give them monetary, stipends or something, that it means that it counts towards their education, it's less cost for them, a shorter time frame for their course. I think that at least for me, those are some of the really cool takeaways for us. Carrie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and there was also a new cover program called Edge that was brought to our attention. That's in Windsor, and it talks about how most participants are still in high school, and it focuses mainly on young Black women. But one of the barriers that came to light was the developing of language skills. So definitely something that we need to kind of consider when, bridging that gap. Another main theme was funding and how that really comes into play to make these really awesome programs become a reality. How can we make sure that we're bridging these initiatives for the long term? And, obviously government funding is a big stepping stone for that. So it still can definitely be a challenge for long-term support. So definitely that can be a barrier. And as Connie mentions, that aspect of play and also thinking about the arts for those people who might not, align with the STEM industries. What about the arts people, those lovers of humanities? We kind of talked a little bit about that and what for those folks, it's really important to make sure that you are providing those skill sets, providing those community outreach programs. So I think that compass talks a little bit what we shared in breakout room 2. But again, Anna Maria is also stating in the chat, yeah, we talked a little bit about introducing career guidance resources earlier than post-secondary education. Yeah. So it's really awesome. I think that we were talking a little bit more about high school students and again, getting them young, because as mentioned with Andre's presentation, starting earlier really helps with that pipeline because, it really helps for those long-term planning.
For sure. Thank you so much, Carrie. I think that long-term piece is always the question. Andre or anyone else, did anyone else have anything you want to share in this group? It's a safe space, I promise. If you want to unmute, and go ahead.
Hi again. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna put another resource in the chat because we went into learning through play, and I preside another nonprofit, not Future Black Female, called Kaidos. We make games that teach. We make games about science and biology mainly. Our first game is about DNA replication, and it's free to download online. So I'm gonna put that online here on the chat, and I'm happy to connect and talk about that as well.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Mariana. And again, if people are frantically copy pasting the chat, we will have a bit of a report back document with those resources that we'll share in about 2 weeks' time, and we'll share it in English and French. Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, and I added this in the chat, but I just wanted to reiterate it that the idea of some alternate rewards, right, for the
Mm,
is very good because I really want to underpin that even though I talked about funding the youth, the paid internships is very attractive for them. 100% in our group, we heard someone said they had this great, program, but then, it was really well subscribed. But then, when folks heard that it wasn't paid, they kind of, had to back up because they, have families or other responsibilities and they need to get paid. But I will say that things like the high school credit for work related training, right, is also very attractive for youth because what that's doing is it's setting them on a path to completing high school maybe a little bit earlier or maybe just having an easier, grade 12 year or something to that effect, right? So they can maybe work a bit more or just have time to reflect, right? And they do really find that very attractive. So I just want to add that that is a good data point. They will come if they can get also high school credit, and they will view that as almost akin to a financial reward for participating in the program. And for high school students, I must admit, not all are like this, but they like rewards, and they like to see it now, right? Because they're
Yeah.
young. It's normal in terms of where they are in their development, right? But that will really draw them in. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Connie.
For sure, Andre. I think that, and I mean, who can blame them? I also like my immediate rewards, you know? So that's really great. Anyway, we're about to wrap up, but please do not log off. We have a very quick poll, Sandy, if you don't mind launching it. It's like a couple short questions. It'll take just a minute of your time. We really want to hear what you thought about this event. Did you enjoy this type of peer learning opportunity? Is it valuable to your work? Was it accessible to you? And we do take this feedback, and it does actively inform our next peer learning groups. Okay, we're not just making you answer these questions and they go off into the ether. I promise. We do look at them. We figure out how we can improve, and we actively incorporate it, because we will be doing these peer learning groups probably about every 6 weeks or so after each and every single Future Skills Center webinar. And so any feedback you give us is helpful, not just for our next one, but for like the next year, next 2 years kind of thing. So really hope that you guys can answer the question that is popped up on your screen. Just back to some logistics, like I said, in about 2 weeks' time or so, we will share back a lot of these resources. Anything that was shared in the chats, some of the key things that we heard in those breakout rooms, and the recording and Andre's slides. We'll make sure that you guys have access to all of that. And as people are filling out the poll, I wanted to invite Ellie and Anna Maria. I didn't know if you have anything you wanted to share, any FSC reports maybe related that you wanted to share, or, Anna Maria mentioned that FSC just launched 2 funding calls. Wanted to make sure you had some airtime to talk about that with everyone here as people are filling out the poll. So Ellie and Anna Maria, over to you.
Yes. I think Anna Maria already shared the link, but I'll leave it to Anna Maria to talk about the call for proposal as well. Anna Maria?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm trying to get the link, maybe Ellie, if you have it, but state of skills. So just want to mention that FSC, we recently launched a State of Skills report on youth. I don't think that was shared, but maybe we can share in some of the resources that we'll share afterwards. But it's essentially a report that we did looking at all the insights of many of our projects that we're funding relating to youth, and kind of condensing and consolidating some of the insights that we're learning from them. So that includes like Andre's project, the LEAP program, and includes other projects that we're doing with Reboot Plus and Douglas College. So a few of our projects in our portfolio looking at youth and analyzing some of the learnings that we're finding out and the insights that we're learning. And then the other part of that, which I did put in the chat, but just so that everyone hears it as well, is at the Future Skills Center, we launched an open calls for proposals yesterday. So I know I heard some folks, mentioning the importance of sustained funding. And so the Future Skills Center is currently has an open call for proposals. Anyone is welcome to apply. So we encourage you to take a look at that link, take a look at the criteria, take a look if it makes sense, and see what kind of proposals, if you have any ideas on how we can address some of the emerging skills and workplace challenges, we're experiencing today. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll wrap up this peer learning session. Thank you so much to all of you for sharing. And of course, thank you so much, Andre, for sharing more about the ELITE program, and to everyone here who shared those resources, put in your chat, added your LinkedIn, talked about the programs. That was amazing. Continue to do that. And hopefully we'll see you at another peer learning group very soon. Thank you so much, everyone.